I was just having a conversation with my cousin, and it I came upon sort of because often when I'm writing, and I've said this in past things, I highly recommend it. Things can come out that you didn't consciously think about. So one thing that came out just before was that if reality, so there's many theories and stories about what reality is, and is it real? And this is one that's been pondering for me this week as a highlight. And one of the theories is that reality is a projection of mind. Okay, so within this theory, you've heard the tagline "die before you die." And this has kind of expanded as information does, as your awareness expands, apparently. And it's very interesting to me because it's die before you die, because to me, you just may realize that you don't die, that you can't die. And if the mind is a projection of, if reality is a projection of the mind, then that would include the fear of loss and separation, which would be apparent in the mind. And so, who's to say that this reality isn't just creating the illusion that people are dying, to have that part of our experience there? But were people ever really born? Were they ever there to begin with? Because one of these theories, as it expands, is this whole thing is an illusion. It's a dream. And I was talking to a friend the other day about this, and it really does sort of create quite the non-attachment or detachment, really, because you sort of ultimately go, well, I don't even know if you're real. And this can have positive and negative effects, I suppose, but in a non-dual sense, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It is what you're feeding these sides. I mean, if you want to feel bad that it's negative, well, then that's you feeling bad, and if you want to feel good that it's positive, well, that's you feeling good. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. It just is. And so I thought, I don't really know the purpose of this video, but it's just very interesting for me to think about the concept of that. And how many different stories there are within the versions of what reality is. And to be honest, where do we ever find out? Will we ever know? Is there a right one? Does anybody even know? Is anyone even there? Because, a couple of the videos that I was following, or the people I was following a while ago, doing this, like, there's nobody there, I don't exist, you don't exist thing, which when you kind of go into it, like, it warps your whole reality. Yeah, it's really interesting, but it didn't feel like, it felt contracted, like it was another story. And the mind is quite capable of creating entire worlds, which is what it's doing. Yeah. But it's just being, I suppose for me, it's being the observer and living in the unknown, because once you can't learn anything. You can't, um, yeah, you can't discover or uncover because you already know. And the ego, that's the thing. to me, the ego is this construct of wanting to know. It wants answers. It creates the questions and it creates the answers. It's very, very interesting. And then to sit in that, I don't know, it's kind of, liberation in itself, isn't it? Because you're not held to any teaching and you're not held to any belief system, and you lose the desire to need to know. I feel like I'm transforming from self-inquiry to just observation, really, because it's just, you know, and I say interesting, it's just interesting now to observe, the questions arising and the answers arising, and everything's just sort of arising and disappearing, and it's very interesting. It's really interesting. I just love it. But it's a really, if you're not at this stage, it's a really interesting place to be, because when somebody upsets you, well, they're not real. You know what I mean? And that could trigger a lot of people, but that's what you're giving it, I suppose, and allow that trigger to show you sort of where to go, if anyone's even really listening to this. Oh, I just love it. It's so interesting. Anyway, I thought I'd just share.